This Voice Registry podcast is brought to you by voicebank.net. Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Pattin, and today my guest is new media expert Doug Welch. Doug is a producer, and he is a director, but in the world of podcasting. So welcome, Doug.
Well, thanks for having me, Tracy. It's always great to get a chance to talk about podcasting, especially to people who perhaps haven't been exposed to it before.
Yes, and I have to tell you, everyone, he is... I call him the podcaster extraordinaire because he does know a lot, and he knows a lot about all the high-tech stuff that we all need to know these days. So why don't you just sort of take it from the beginning and just tell us briefly, what is podcasting?
Well, let me start with what it's not. Because one of the myths there's several myths we try to kill off right up front. First thing is it doesn't require an iPod. Some people are confused about that because of the name. Frankly, the name was just used as a way to get attention. It doesn't mean it's tied to the iPod. In fact, most people listen to podcasts directly from their computer or perhaps even by burning it to CD, which you can do with a podcast.
Oh, that's interesting. See, now most people I talk to think it is part of the iPod thing.
It's a common misconception. Now, I will say it works great with an iPod. And in fact, what I usually refer people to is if they want to get started with podcasting, with listening, is go right to Apple's iTunes product. It's the simplest way to find and listen and subscribe to podcasts. And we'll talk about
because I was reading in a Podcasting 101 book about that. It's the best thing to do is just listen to other podcasts.
Frankly, that is the best way.
It's
the best way to figure out what you might want to do. It's the best way to figure out what you might like. It's a great way to see totally different approaches to production. Because in the podcast world, you find some shows that are just like a radio show that you would hear, a morning zoo show you hear in any radio station in the country today. And some are totally quirky and unique and would never make it on radio. But because of the ability for anyone to produce a podcast, you can start to get some really great, innovative, unique shows out there.
Okay, so the question, and I know all you that are listening are wondering, why podcast as a voiceover talent? What's in it for the voiceover person?
Well, this goes back to something I've developed called Carlin's First Law of Attraction. And anyone who remembers George Carlin's album Class Clown, in there he talks about what's the job of a class clown. Well, the job of a class clown is attracting attention to yourself. And frankly, that's what we're all doing. And
that's exactly right.
That's what podcasts allow you to do. You have your reel, you have your demos, you have all the stuff you use to promote yourself within the industry. But the fact is, if someone doesn't know about you, they can't hire you. So if you're not perhaps getting as much work as you'd like, or it's not being heard in the right places, why not do something for yourself? Why not have your voice out there so that someone can be listening and go, well, dang, I'd really like them to do voiceover for me. Now, frankly, there have been people in my podcasting community that I'm involved with that have made entire businesses out of doing voiceover for podcasts.
So when you say that, what do you mean? What would they do as a voice talent for another person's podcast?
For example, I'm a member of a podcasting group called Friends in Tech. We're a loose association of technology podcasters. One of our members decided he wanted some bumpers for his show, some intros, some bumpers and stuff. And along the way, he said, well, you know what? How much would you charge to do some bumpers for the Friends in Tech group as a whole? And the guy said, well, I'll do them for half price. I'll throw that in since you hired me to do this. And so we ended up with some really nice bumpers like, this show is a proud member of Friends in Tech at friendsintech.com with a music bed and everything underneath it, or something announcing the use of our forums. You know, if you want to continue the conversation, visit our forums at friendsintech.com. And so basically, in a very kind of traditional way, we hired this voiceover talent to do what they would have done for radio or television or any traditional media, but we hired them to do it for podcasts.
So it sounds like it's obviously a great marketing tool for voice talent, not only to market what they do, but as they're doing the podcast, they are showing the masses how they sound, so that it's like they're getting 2 for 1 there.
Basically, yeah. So they're doing a show about something they're interested in. Perhaps they have an interest in historical cars or muscle cars or knitting or whatever. It doesn't really matter. In following that passion and doing the show about something they enjoy, they're also basically making a 10, 15, 20-minute demo of their voice and how they interact with people.
This is great, which brings to the next question about what's next. I mean, where this whole podcasting thing, where is it all going? And in terms of speaking to the voice talent, the voice actor, where is this going? Is this only going to get bigger?
It is totally going to explode the market that we're dealing with today. Because the fact is, today you're dealing with large networks on radio and television, you're dealing with television stations, you're dealing with movie trailer companies and so on. In the future, and it's already happening, just like my example that I just gave, you're going to be dealing with small companies, individuals. You're going to be dealing with podcast producers like myself who have a show and they want some professional bumpers, some professional introductions or whatever to go on the show. So in fact, it's going to actually increase your market as a voiceover person dramatically, because you're not going to be funneled down so much through the agents, through the typical agencies to get you your job. You're going to actually have a way of developing your own business. Yeah, you still, I tell people it's all about the and, not the or.
Because of everybody, of course, is, a lot of our listeners are part of Voiceregistry and part of Voice Bank, so they're already represented, or their pages are up there. But it's an and thing. This will only enhance.
Right. It's just going to expand your possibilities as a voiceover talent, because there's just going to be so much more production at a level that will be easier to actually get employed in it. Now, will it pay as much? Well, no. If you're under if you're doing something for a small company or an individual producer, you probably won't pay as much, but you'll be doing a lot more work. And frankly, the more work you do, in my mind, the more work you get.
Exactly.
And so what you'll find eventually, I think, is the money-making potential will actually be more than what we have today, because you'll simply have more opportunities to choose from.
This has been part 1 of my interview with Doug Welch. This Voice Registry podcast was brought to you by voicebank.net. Join us next time.